Hello, my name is Maria Jolicoeur. Welcome to my show, Let's Talk About History. I'm here today with Dale Plummer. Hello, Dale. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Maria. Good to be here.
There has been an update on the Reid Hughes building. And last Monday at the City Council meeting, they approved the development of the Reid Hughes building. What does that mean exactly?
Well, I wouldn't exactly say they approved the development of it, but they did at least provide a way for the building to be developed. They put a resolution in the council agenda which called for putting out a request for proposals to stabilize and then to develop the Reid Hughes. So now, of course, a proposal has to come in, which they will accept, and then move forward from there. The Women's Institute for Housing and Economic Development, Betsy Crum, the director of which, is prepared to, in fact, put in a proposal in concert with Bill Morse of New London, who has offered to put up a substantial amount of money towards stabilizing the building. So we, of course, the request for proposal will be open to any potential developer. So it's conceivable that someone else might put in a proposal, but it's very dubious at this point. I think the Women's Institute has a very solid proposal. We've been working as Norwich Heritage Trust with them and with the state to develop that proposal and to also provide that as a reasonable alternative to demolishing the building.
Mm-hmm. So as in your efforts to restore the Warrigan, you came through at the last hour and saved the Reid Hughes building from demolition.
Well, that sword of Damocles is still hanging over the Reid Hughes building. The city still has not rescinded their vote to demolish the building. They actually have received bids from contractors. They have a bid of $697,000, the low bid from Ernie Weiss or Weiss Construction. However, they are faced with the prospect of having the state intervene and seek a court order to stop the demolition because of state statutes preventing the unreasonable demolition of an historic building. And I think that we and others, Norwich Heritage Trust and others, demonstrated to the state that there is a reasonable and prudent alternative to the demolition of the building, and that is the plan by Betsy Crum and the Women's Institute.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So in the past, you had expressed the use that you thought it would be a good idea to use a local contractor.
Well,
is that still?
Well, we, Norwich Heritage Trust, with the last request for proposals that they did, we submitted a proposal similar to the proposal of the Women's Institute to rehab the building for mixed use, apartments and retail space on the first floor. That proposal was not accepted by the city. We put the proposal in with a very good local contractor, D'Amato Builders and Associates, who are up in the industrial park and who have done some wonderful work. But that wasn't accepted And since then, our partner, primary partner in that, withdrew their willingness to move forward with the project, understandably, since the city did not accept what was, I think, a proposal that would have gone very well.
Mm-hmm.
So now what we've been doing is working with the same architect, Bill Krosky, Betsy Crum, who would actually, or the Women's Institute, Betsy Crum is the executive director, to develop the building, and that would be really the responsibility of the Women's Institute and Bill Morse to do. So we have more of a role in advocating the preservation of the building, in seeing that the Women's Institute proposal is accepted, because we feel it's the only reasonable alternative out there, and in a way it's very similar to what happened with the Warwigan.
Mm-hmm.
The city, like Reid Hughes, was determined to tear down the historic Warwigan Hotel. They seem to have a penchant for tearing down historic buildings.
Okay.
And again, we succeeded in getting the state to say this is not reasonable, and really forcing the city to deal with Bruce Becker, who was willing to develop the building. But that took a long time. It was 4 years between the vote to demolish the building, the Warwigan, in 1999. Actually, it was 6 years before the Warwigan was finished. It took them 4 years to come to an agreement with Bruce Becker, for Bruce to put together all of the funding sources, the tax credits, investors, and so forth. So it's a long-term process.
You had mentioned that the city of Norwich tears down historic buildings. At the meeting last Monday, Tucker Braddock,
Yeah.
city council member, said that he's voting in favor of the restoration of the Reid Hughes building, but that he doesn't want your efforts to stop with the Reid Hughes building, that there are other buildings in Norwich that need attention and restoration. So you're going to continue with your work.
We certainly, Norwich Heritage Trust is certainly, our whole purpose for existence is to preserve the historic built environment of Norwich for the benefit of the citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Historic buildings yield places for people to live and work and shop, mm-hmm. and eat and so forth. They contribute to the taxes, the tax rolls. They, their owners and tenants pay into public utilities. So they really assist. When you demolish a building and you have a vacant lot, the vacant lot pays almost nothing in taxes. It generates no life.
Revenue.
No revenue, but also no life for the city. It's when you have people living and working and so forth in the city and using these buildings that the public really benefits to the maximum. And you look at other cities which have successfully revitalized their downtowns and neighborhoods. They've taken advantage of.
New London's a good
Yes. Star Street in New London,
yes.
Bank Street.
Yes.
I remember I lived in New London for a number of years, and I remember the redevelopment agency saying, gee, we spent tens of millions of dollars knocking buildings down in Winthrop Cove and Shaw's Cove, but the paltry couple of million that we spent on Bank Street in helping to restore the facades has been much more successful. It's generated more investment and more business, and they were scratching their heads at that. Look at Union Railroad Station. They were going to demolish that and put up a little waiting booth, a little aluminum and glass waiting booth.
Yeah.
And the preservationist said, wait, this is the 17th busiest train station in America. this building can be rehabbed and made into a success. And that's exactly what happened. And now it's something that brings people into the downtown, that welcomes you when you come into the downtown. It's certainly much better than essentially a booth, which is what they would have had.
Yeah. So when can we expect to see the enforcement of the structure itself start, some work being done to enforce the structure?
Well, the council has directed the city manager to put out a request for proposals. Once he puts it out, potential developers have 45 days to respond. After that, the city council has to decide whether or not to accept that. If the city council accepts it and enters into a contract, they have said that the planning, funding, licensing, permitting, all to be in place by June 20th, 2017 for stabilization. And that the stabilization should start no later than July 1st, 2017, and to be completed no later than November 1st, 2017. So that's a fairly tight time schedule. In fact, it's much tighter than the city itself seems to run to. And, they could have made this a 30-day response period. They could have actually eliminated that 45-day period almost entirely by going through Norwich Community Development Corporation. But this is the way they've decided to do it. So really, the burden is going to be on the city to really act in a timely fashion so that the Women's Institute and Bill Morris can do their thing. If they drag out, approval of the proposal, then it's going to allow less time for the preliminary work to start on the building. And of course, that will be simply stabilization. The idea is to have it stabilized before next winter. Now, we've had a big thing about, the building's going to fall down this winter if we don't demolish it, and which, truly is just fluff. The engineer from Collinsville, Jim Grant, went through the building and, said to the state, look, this building is not about to fall down. Sure, it's in bad shape, but it can be rehabilitated. And, they have a plan for stabilizing it so that it will be stable for the foreseeable future. Now that protects the public's interest. It prevents the building from deteriorating further, and it allows the Women's Institute time to put together the funding package to actually renovate the building into apartments and retail space, which could take a couple of years.
So it has been decided that it would be apartments for veterans. Has that been decided, that the Women's Institute would make apartments for veterans?
That is the plan of the Women's Institute. They have built new housing for veterans in Newington, and in fact, John Salamone, our city manager, was the city manager in Newington and worked with the Women's Institute on that project. And they also did over the old American Legion building in Jewett City for 18 units for veterans, very similar to what would happen here in Norwich. Very successful rehabilitation. They got the funding, they did the work, it's beautiful.
You have some